Hello, company, and welcome to the Show People podcast, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the UK performing arts industry and those dedicated to their craft. My name is Andrew Keats. I'm a theatre director and the artistic director of Queer Theatre. Tonight, we are honoured to welcome, frankly, one of the greatest actors of all time. A man whose extraordinary career spans decades. He's received over 60 major international awards for his performances on screen, stage and television, whose voice in LGBTQI+ rights has inspired countless, and whose roles range from Shakespearean kings to wizards and supervillains. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Sir Ian McKellen.
Well, the last time I was at the Two Brewers, I was right here doing line dancing.
What?
Have you ever done it? It's great, and there's a wonderful community of people. It's not resolutely queer, but it's gay.
Oh, yeah. Now, before we get going, I want you to see how far this stage lip is. Don't go beyond that.
All right. Oh, cruel. It was an odd feeling. Andrew's talking about me having fallen off the stage. In the middle of a performance, I was playing Falstaff, the fat man in Shakespeare. And but one night my foot caught in a chair, and as I tried to shake it off with the other foot standing on a newspaper, I started to glide on the polished surface of the stage, inevitably towards the audience. I think if I'd been a bit younger, I might have jumped up or sat down or something to stop it. But there was something in my head was saying, this is the end. End of what? I don't know, but it was the end of that production for me. And I fell into the lap of someone on the front row. And thanks to that lap, and thanks to the padding I was wearing, I did very little damage. But I thought I was a goner.
What's your first memory of the Two Brewers? I hear that I know you've been here for the line dancing, but that can't be the only time you've been here.
Well, I was a very late comer to gay things, really. And it wasn't until I came out aged 49 that I began to discover the gay life of London. I mean, my gay life was living with a series of partners very happily and openly. Everybody knew I was gay who knew me. But I didn't go out, probably because I was working too hard. And But when I came out and joined in the fun of meeting gay people who I hadn't known about, who were living close by, and discovered the White Swan at the end of my road in Limehouse, and saw at close quarters Lily Savage and I don't know, Dave Lynn, all sorts of wonderful performers who'd been at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, and some of them here. And I certainly came to see Regina Fong one night. Do you remember Regina?
Jimmy Smith does.
Yes, wonderful performers. And yeah, but I didn't go out much. I all through the 60s, you know, when everyone else was supposed to be having fun in swinging London, I didn't know anything about it all. I was just busy getting on with being an actor.
However, I did hear you recently made a little visit to Roast.
Oh, these days, I'm out all the time. Yeah. Yes, I enjoyed Roast, yes.
What parts of Roast?
Well, the little bit that's well done, usually. Nothing too rare.
Gravy man, are we?
Yeah.
So now, what can we look forward to from you this year? I know you've been filming something recently that I know some people...
Well, since my accident, I have been on stage, just making little appearances here, there, and everywhere, not unlike this evening. But no, I've been filming, and I've made, I think it's 4 films this year.
Whoa.
And they're all worth just mentioning. That first of all, I got an invitation from Steven Soderbergh, who is one of the great independent filmmakers working today. He lives in London, actually, and he was directing this film, very much set in London, and asked me to come and be in it. So without even reading it, I said, yes, I would. And then it turned out to have Michaela Cole in the other leading part, and Jessica Gunning, if you remember from, oh dear, what was that big success you just had? Oh dear, what's it called? You can cut this out while I think.
Sure. But you're a big fan.
It's, you know, she's yes, Baby Reindeer. Thank you. So I'll just say it now so you can just do the cut neatly. And we've got Jessica Gunning from Baby Reindeer.
Oh, she's very good. Unforgettable.
And James Corden from Everything Else.
Well, nothing's perfect, is it?
He said to me one day, he said, Ian, isn't it wonderful for all these people working with a legend of cinema and stage? He said, and then, of course, there's you. So we're off to Toronto to sell that and introduce it to people. Then I did a film written by my favourite playwright, I think. Oh, I mustn't say that. Martin Sherman will be listening.
He certainly will.
English playwright, Simon Stevens. Mm-hmm. And he's written a very interesting script in that it's short, about 35 minutes, just 4 actors in it, and you will view it, not in the cinema, not on the screen, not on television, but on your own. When I say on your own, you'll be in a room with 200 other people doing the same thing, sitting in a chair, and in front of you will be a little space, and the lights will go down. Then you'll put on the glasses, and when you put on the glasses, suddenly, out of nowhere, there will be 4 actors occupied and 4 chairs in front of you. And the same actors will be in front of everybody there. Mm-hmm. And the technology is absolutely amazing. They brought round the pair of these glasses to my front room, and I put them on, and there was a man in my front room playing the piano. In 3D, you could go up to him, you could look at him, you could go around the corner, see him from every angle. And so whether this is the future, I don't know, but it's certainly not the past. And so it was fun to go and do that. And then and meanwhile, I've been going out to Pinewood with the remnants of the X-Men people, Patrick Stewart and Jimmy Marsden and Rebecca Remain-Stamos, Alan Cumming, we're all there, with the Avengers people. Don't ask me who they are or what they do. But, they were all there. They all looked exactly the same. They'd all been to the same trainer, clearly. But there were some mates there, like Vanessa Kirby and Robert Downey Jr. Now, when Robert was taking far too many drugs and ruining his life, he made a film here called Restoration, and I was in that too. He was wonderful. Mm. And when I came to film Richard III by Shakespeare, I asked him to come and play a small part in it, which he did. It was funny. He was, I don't know what drugs he was on, but he was on an awful lot of them. And yet functioning perfectly well and acting brilliantly. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he discovered that life, there was more to it than ruining his health and advancing more quickly than necessary towards death. And he got out of it. And he now, of course, is a hugely successful film star. So lovely to work with him again.
I'm happy to hear
Now, 3 more days to do that. And then I've just heard, and this is the big news, this is the scoop. Go on. Nobody else knows this. we have greenlit a film which is written by Martin Sherman, who you know is the author of Bent and many other wonderful gay plays. It's about two old geezers, one, me and Alan and Roger Allen, in the play that we did at Windsor a year ago. These two old guys, walking dogs, meet and fall in love. It's a wonderful, very English comedy. And supporting us in the cast, we've got your mate, Stephen Fry.
I've heard of him.
Everybody's mate.
Sir Stephen Fry,
yes,
Sir Ian.
Everybody's mate, Dame Joanna Lumley.
A local girl.
Alan Cumming, Jessica Gunning, who was in that wonderful... I've forgotten again. What was it? Reindeer. Oh dear. Anyway, so, and it's going to be directed by my ex, Sean Mathias, who directed the play, and that'll be a lovely reunion for me. And then that's it. That's the work in progress. And next year I'm talking about going back to Middle-earth and reprising a little bit of Gandalf.
What? Any journalists in, please let us get the edit sorted first. That would be extraordinary. So you're really slowing down.
Well, I am in the sense that however hard you're working on a film, it's not as hard work as being in the theatre. Or as I now realise, anywhere near as dangerous.
Let's, to quote Julie Andrews, let's start at the very beginning. Can you paint a picture of what your childhood was like?
Paint a picture of what?
Of what your childhood was like.
Childhood, happy. Happy. My father was a civil engineer, borough engineer of Wigan and later Bolton, so I lived in both those towns and in Greater Manchester. My sister, 5 years older than me, she was the one who took me to the theatre, but my parents loved going to the theatre rather than the cinema. In fact, the cinemas in Wigan were flea pits. But in Bolton, where we lived, there were 3 theatres, 3 professional theatres. And one had a repertory company, did a different play every week. Another one was took tours, opera, ballet, big pantomime each year. And the Grand Theatre, my favourite, was variety, different bill each week. Comedians, stand-up comics, singers, dancers, lovely. My mother died when I was 12, and that was something I never quite got over. My father married again quite quickly, I think partly to give me a mother figure, and Gladys arrived in my life, my stepmother. She lived till she was 100. My father died far too young after he'd just seen me in my first show in the West End. And then my sister died before she was 70, so that's it, really. That's the end of the McKellens. There are a few scattered around, but not many. And I look back on it all with enormous affection and gratitude.
Yeah.
There was a Christian household, so we were nice to each other, and we were nice to other people, and generosity was in the air. No excess. We weren't very rich, but we never wanted for anything that I knew about. And then I went to a wonderful school in Bolton, which cared as much about the arts as it did about sport or academia. So when I discovered that I wanted to find out more about acting rather than just watching other people do it, I was in the right school to help.
That amount of grief at such a young age,
yes.
How long did it take you to find peace with it? Or indeed, do you ever find peace with such loss?
No, I don't think it's still there. Yes. It makes me, I think, anxious about affection and love will it last?
Yeah.
And if ever I've had a break-up in a relationship, I feel it, I think, with an added depth because of the loss of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I used to have a dream that she wasn't really dead at all. And they were wonderful dreams, meeting her again. But she needed looking after. She'd been locked up somewhere. She'd been put away somewhere. One dream I had, which you'll be interested in, was a regular one. Now, actors have a dream, you'll know it, of an opening night, and you've forgotten to rehearse the play.
I've worked in the Fringe. Often that's the case.
Yeah. or even read the play. Or what is the third act? You have no idea, and you have to go on. It's absolute misery, and you wake up, thank God, to discover it's a dream. But my regular dream was not just that one of anxiety, but of knowing that I had committed some dreadful crime. Probably, I thought, that I'd killed somebody. Who it was, I didn't know, but others did, and they were chasing me, and they were trying to bring me to some sort of justice. And they never managed it. I always woke up in time. And when I came out, and I never had that dream again.
Mm.
The person I'd killed, or thought I'd killed, was myself. I worked out. And I deserved punishment for that. But now I'm out and Ian McKellen is alive. There's no need for that dream.
Yeah. What mattered to you when you were young that doesn't matter so much now?
What mattered to me when I was young?
That doesn't matter so much now. How have your values changed as you've gone through the decades?
I was always interested in what the pudding was going to be. And my mother always said the same thing. She said, it's surprise pudding. But I hoped it was going to be cabinet pudding. Do you know how to make that?
No.
You buy a Swiss roll, jam Swiss roll, slice it up, put it in a basin, cover it with sliced bananas, and then some custard. That's my favourite. And but I worried about it then, and I still worry about it. Well, am I going to have cabinet pudding again? No, I don't really know what your question means. I can't think of.
Okay, I'll rephrase it.
Do you tell me what your...
I think it's what our values are when we're young,
Yes,
compared to what our values are as we get older. And, you know, when I was young, I had a desperate need to prove, a desperate need for validation. And as I grow older, that matters less and less and less. And I was curious, you know, being a man from the north to now spending so much time in London, I wonder how those decades and those locations have changed.
Well, I don't think I can answer that. I think I'm boringly the same person. I'm mad about the theatre, about live entertainment, whether it's music or drama. It doesn't matter. I'm lucky enough to be earning my living doing that. Before, when I was a kid, I was just watching others do it. And I suppose because my parents were good people, and so were their friends, that there's a side of my life which has been continuing the work that I saw them do with great effect. In Wigan, where we were during the war, we had coming to stay with us people, a family from Middlesex who were evacuees, whose life was in perpetual danger in London, but in relative calm of Wigan, that they were safe living with us. And then just after the war, I remember a German, the enemy, a German coming to have midday meal with us because he was a prisoner of war living nearby. Typical that my parents would want to do that so soon after the war. The first black man that people ever saw in Wigan was Henry from Ghana, who stayed with us in our family. When we went out with Henry, it was like the Pied Piper. The kids just wanted to follow him. They could not believe this strange being. So, but it wasn't his colour that was important to my parents. It was just somebody who was here and needed a bit of help while he was here. And my family is full of teachers, like my sister and her husband, do-gooders like my aunt who ran a home for abused women who had tough times with their husbands. Both my grandparents were preachers, nonconformist preachers. My father was a lay preacher. So when eventually it came my turn to stand up and be counted and preach my own sermons, I realised I was in the McKellen family tradition.
What about the Belgrade Theatre? Shall we have a look at your time there?
Yes, the Belgrade, lovely.
Was that really where everything started for you?
Well, that was my first professional job. I had appeared in London in productions that had come from university and just briefly played in London. But no, my first fully paid job, £8 a week, was the Belgrade Coventry, which was a relatively new theatre built in the centre of Coventry after the devastation of the bombing during the war. Mm. And the thinking was if they were going to revive the spirit of the old Coventry, they would include a theatre in the new building. And we did a different play every 2 weeks, and I worked with some wonderful, wonderful actors. And over a year was in, 20 plays of one sort and another, from 2 Agatha Christie, 1 Shakespeare, 1 Chekhov, a lot of modern plays, Priestley, a pantomime, a Dickens, everything. And what happened during the year was you discovered what you were good at and what you weren't good at, and you... it was like an apprenticeship.
Do you wish that Rep would come back?
I do.
How would we do that?
Well, you won't know, but we're going back now to the early 1960s. Every major town and city in the country had a repertory company, a company of actors who were employed full-time, week in, week out, to do a different play every 2 weeks, or maybe every 3 or every 4 weeks. At that time, you couldn't act professionally unless you were a member of the union. And you couldn't become a full member of the union until you'd done 44 weeks apprenticeship. And during those 44 weeks, you could not work in London, you could not work on television, you couldn't work in film. Mm-hmm. You had to prove that you wanted to be an actor, and the proof was the 44 weeks you did where outside London. How do you do that? In one of these repertory companies. So when Mrs. Thatcher decided on a point of principle that anyone should be able to act, and she destroyed the closed shop, there was no real incentive for young actors straight out of drama school to go and work in these repertory companies. At the same time, money got rather short, and now all those theatres, they still exist, but none of them, not one, has a permanent company of actors. Mm-hmm. They have permanent publicists, permanent stage management, permanent directors, permanent designers, but they don't have any permanent actors. Nor does the National Theatre. Mm-hmm. Nor does the Royal Shakespeare Company. So I'm on a little mission. It's not starting here tonight. I bellyache about it all the time. that at least the National Theatre and the RSC should go back to what they were founded to do, really, and which I did with them, with Laurence Olivier, when he was running the first National Theatre, in a very distinguished group of actors who stayed together for a long period of time and included Maggie Smith, Joan Plowright, Derek Jacobi, Anthony Hopkins, Michael Gambon, Lynn Redgrave, Geraldine McEwen, Michael Redgrave. I mean, on and on and on it goes. But anyone really who's very successful today was probably in that company. And the fact that we don't have that any longer is a great pity, because you begin to think, well, what is the National Theatre all about? Is it just a producing management like Sonia Friedman or Andrew Lloyd Webber? What makes it different? And I think what would make it different would be to go back to having a company. And if they ever had one, I'd be knocking on the door. And I think if they did have it, perhaps regional theatre would think, why don't we go back to doing what we did so successfully for many years? And one way to make sure it happened would be to get rid of the ban on the closed shop. Mm-hmm. We couldn't get rid of it when we were in Europe because it was a European directive that Thatcher took advantage of. We are not now in Europe, alas. However, we are not obliged any longer to have that rule, and we could go back to having a closed shop, which would be an apprenticeship system for young actors, and therefore we would encourage those local theatres, which provides entertainment for local audiences. You know, why should London have all the fun? Anyway, there we end of lecture, but do you see what I mean?
Sure, if anyone's going to make that happen, he's sat next to me now.
Well, you run a company, you're doing the right thing.
We'll email, we'll work it out. Edward II.
Yes?
Playing a gay monarch at a time...
Wasn't I lucky?
At a time when being gay was still not as it is now. What was that like to do?
Well, it wasn't done because it was a gay play, I don't think, although the director was gay. And the company, Prospect Theatre Company, was two of the people who ran it were gay. But we weren't on a mission. We were doing a great play that happened to be a great gay play.
Sounds pretty gay, though, Ian.
Yeah, but Christopher Marlowe was a good rival to Shakespeare, and of course was gay. So, yes, there was a special significance, but it wasn't the only reason for doing the play.
Mm-hmm. How much have you
enjoyed the auditions, because for my lover Gaveston and a series of young men were brought in and were invited or instructed that in order to be considered for the part, they had to kiss Ian McKellen. And I chose James Lawrence for his lips.
No wonder you want a closed shop.
So it was astonishing to do that play, which, of course, was a dangerous thing to do, because two men openly affectionate on stage was practically unknown. There weren't many plays. It was the first play, I think, to have a gay hero and set standards we hadn't really been matched since, until very recently. When we were doing the play at the Edinburgh Festival, where it started, our production, I was breaking the law because my partner came up, and if we had sex, that was not allowed in Scotland at the time between two men, unless whatever age they were. Mm-hmm. It was a prisonable offence. And on stage, we were parading homosexuality in a way that many people found objectionable, because it was happening on in the confines of the Church of Scotland, whose premises we did the play in. But a man called Councillor Kidd sent along the watch committee to look at our play to see whether it should be banned.
Wow.
And 2 policemen sat in the front row.
Incredible.
And at the end, they stood up to start the standing ovation. And,
Really?
That's the last we heard about Councillor Kidd.
Wow.
And of course, he guaranteed that we sold every single ticket. It became a sensation. And then we filmed it. It was put on TV, and still to this day, middle-aged men come up to me and say, first time I ever saw 2 men kissing was when you did Edward II, because it was broadcast on PBS. So it turned out to be part of the gay revolution, but that wasn't its original intention.
And from one gay play to another, and I say this with a pink triangle tattooed on my arm,
Yes.
you were in a play called Bent by Martin Sherman, which remains my favourite play indeed. I read that play at 13 years old and came out to my mother the same night. And the play was written with you in mind, I'm right in thinking, as Max, right?
It was Martin's first night present to me, the sheet of paper in which he'd been scribbling ideas for the play. And when he said Max, was the name of the principal character, he said, "Think, Ian McKellen." And he sent me the play, and yes, I wasn't out at the time.
No.
Why wasn't I out, you might think? Well, I didn't feel there was any need to be out. I was living openly with men. Everybody knew I was gay. I never hid it from anybody, except that bit of coming out that most people don't have to bother with, which is talking to the press about being gay. Not that you would ever get asked much. I remember Simon Callow, when the first actor of any note who came out in this country was Simon Callow, and because he'd been out at university, he was obviously going to be out for the rest of his life. But when he talked to the press about it in those days, we're going back now to the early 70s, it was almost the worst thing you could say about somebody, that they were gay. So although he talked about it, they wouldn't print it. And Simon had to come out by writing a book. And he came out in the book. There I was. I find it difficult to think now why I didn't talk about it when we were doing Bent. But I used to say, oh, this is not a gay play. It's a play about human nature. Bollocks, it's a gay play. And, it meant a lot to a lot of people. I remember 2 very distinguished actors at the time, Alec Guinness, for one, and Michael Redgrave, Vanessa's father, for another. Both had a lot of gay in their lives, always never mentioned. But each of them came on their own to see the play, and both wanted to come backstage afterwards and just talk about it. And that was the reaction that we got all the time. So it was a great honour to be in Bent. And before Martin wrote his play, very few people realised that the gay people had been as badly treated, and he would claim even worse treated than the other people in the camps. And they had a terrible time when if they managed to survive the labour camps after the war, they couldn't talk about what had happened because the laws were still in place that Hitler had been able to take advantage of, anti-gay laws. So Bent is a very important part. I was glad to be in the film of it, and then we revived it. That was the most exciting night of my life. It will never be matched. We were setting up Stonewall. I don't know what you think about Stonewall these days, but when we started, it was simply going to be a lobby group to change the laws that disadvantaged gay people. And we needed some funds to have an office and a professional staff. And we thought, well, why don't we put on a one-night-only production of Ben? So Michael Cashman and I played the leads, and Richard E. Grant and Alex Jennings, Ian Charlson.
Wow.
Came to be in the play, and we did it for one night. And when we reached Dakar, the labour camp, we had 100 people in the dreadful pyjama uniforms, shuffling across the stage. And when I did the play on stage, I would wear a wig in the first half, and in the interval, after which we were seen in Dakar, where everyone's head was shaved, I took the wig off. But on that one night that we did it at the Adelphi Theatre, I had my full head of hair until the interval. And during the interval, we actually cut all the hair
Wonderful.
off. And I watched myself turning into a prisoner as I looked into the mirror. So yes, wonderful to have been allowed to be involved in that.
It's very easy for me to introduce people on the stage, as I did with you using hyperbole, but I think it's fair to say you are an architect of gay rights in this country.
Ooh.
In regards to, well, let's look at the way you came out, founding Stonewall, the conversations you had with prime ministers.
Oh, well, I guess that did all that. But that was all fun, Oh, come on.
But I want to know, how did you go from a man who was literally in what I believe to be the greatest gay play ever written to coming out on the radio?
Well, yes, it was. I was in the States doing something, probably a one-man show, and I was in San Francisco, and I met Armistead Maupin, the author of Tales of the City. And one night, stoned out of our minds, I said to him, Armistead, do you think that I should come out? And he said, yes, everybody should come out. And I think Armistead thought the major purpose of his life was to encourage people to come out. And people in the public eye, particularly, because they would set an example to others. But having had those conversations, I came back to England, and they were building a refuge of sorts for people with AIDS called the London Lighthouse. Mm-hmm. In Notting Hill, in a converted school. And they'd run out of funds. And I realised that if I put on my show for free, all the take could go to help build this shelter and this much-needed resource. It was wonderful, and I would go out after the show and collect money in the bucket, and everyone knew where the money was going and gave very generously. And that money was then counted. We all sat on the floor and counted, put it into a box, and the box was carried to Notting Hill Gate and to pay off the builders so that they would turn up for the following day's work and so on. And we got the building finished. And one night I was out collecting money, and Carol Waddis, a lesbian, who I vaguely knew, said, have you heard about Section 28? I said, no. So she handed me some stuff that I read when I got home. And the idea was that there would be a new law making it illegal to speak anything positive about homosexuality in a state-maintained school. Well, I took this so personally, and I immediately joined a little group called the Arts Committee, which was run by Richard Sandals, who had been a member of a gay sweatshop and knew a thing or two about making a fuss in a good way. And he had the idea that we could sell this to the public at large by saying this was an attempt to reintroduce censorship. If you couldn't speak positively about gay issues in a school, does that mean you couldn't do a play by Noel Coward or read a book by Oscar Wilde or Christopher Marlowe and so on and so on? Play music by Tchaikovsky. And of course, the one thing you don't like in this country is censorship, and it was easy to gather everybody on board, gay, straight. So once I was involved in this campaign to stop this law that was going through Parliament, I've never in my life been so certain that I was right. I say that I'm cursed with seeing both sides to every question. You know, yes, but I know, but even so, maybe. You know, but on this issue, no, I was just absolutely, with all the rest, on the highest of high moral high ground. We were right, and everybody else who disagreed with us was wrong. And we were right. These laws, that law was a monstrous attack on gay people. And we could present it as such, but I could only present it as such with the force that I knew would work by saying, this is a law against me. A lot of other people, but me, and I won't have it. So knowing, you know, with that at the back of my mind, when I started doing publicity, I picked the day when I said, and I thought doing it on radio, which a lot of people would listen to, I said, yeah, well, I think I call myself a homosexual. They knew what I meant. Yes, and the person arguing with me was a man called, on the radio, was Peregrine Worsthorne.
Is he a Harry Potter character?
Very much so, and he was an editor of the Daily Telegraph or some such. And he said, you know, these gay people, they go to clubs and congregate there in the West End. I said, oh, you mean like the Garrick Club? I said, of which he was a member, of course. The Garrick Club is a very respectable. Oh, Jesus. And then when I got my knighthood, and I'll always be proud that I got my knighthood after I'd come out. I wasn't the first person, openly gay person to get a knighthood. That was Angus Wilson, the novelist. I was the second. And if you go, you go to Buckingham Palace and you're told what to do and how to kneel and all that. No problem for me, that. No, well, I've been in lots of plays where you have to kneel in front of the king. And next in line, getting his knighthood, was who? Peregrine Worsthorne. And I thought, yeah, that there you go, the Brits. Give a little bit there and take a little bit away there. Anyway, so yes, but the part I was playing, and I was playing a part, was I was the successful classical actor, utterly reliable. You know, the person who worked at the National Theatre, the Royal Shakespeare, did Shakespeare, for goodness sake. You know, was never done anything wrong publicly. Was all a reliable type. I've been given a medal by the Queen already. So when I came out, the people sort of had to pay a bit of attention. And then when the same government who was introducing this dreadful law decided to give me a knighthood, some people were confused, including Derek Jarman, who had been out long before me and saw me as a latecomer to the cause and thought I was, I really shouldn't accept a knighthood from Thatcher. But other people advised me differently and said, no, to get the knighthood and then use it. And it is true that if you're on a campaign and you want to reach people, to have a title, I'm afraid, helps. Doors are more likely to open, and you make your case. But as for the founding of Stonewall, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just there. I went to all the meetings, fascinating. But I wasn't really any help. Where I could help was in raising funds, raising money.
Yeah.
And I used to produce, I wish I could still do it really, the Equality Show at the Royal Albert Hall. We did 8 of them. We took over the Albert Hall for one night. We hung the rainbow flag outside. And we had on the stage Elton John, Sting, George Michael, Martina Navratilova. Huge stars. So that was what I was good at and where I was helpful. But, I am a co-founder. I didn't found Stonewall. I was there. I'm very glad to be there. And we had the initial discussions as to how Stonewall should be formed in Heaven nightclub, which at the time was owned by Richard Branson. I think he knew what he was doing. He knew what we were up to, and so our meetings used to gradually, as the evening came on, we were invaded by other people, and eventually they sort of took over, and we all had a party. So it was. Oh, good, it was fun. And we knew, or I knew, we're bound to win in the end. We've got to, because we're right. And eventually, the irony is, I've told you that Simon Cowell couldn't get his sexuality mentioned in newspapers that were writing about him. I've told you that it was against the law to have sex if you were 2 men in Edinburgh when I was a young man growing up. What inhibited change was that gays were so well hidden. No one was outrageous. Outrageous in private, yeah, fine. But not in the streets. Come on, you be careful. Hold hands. Do you want to go to prison? Because that was the option. And when John Gielgud was fined for soliciting another man in a public lavatory, for goodness sake. And other people in our business, like John Dexter, great director, imprisoned for having sex with another man. It had to change. And what would change would be when the world had to talk about gay people. And AIDS put us on the agenda. Now, AIDS was never a gay disease. No, sorry, AIDS or HIV, it was never specifically a gay issue, but initially it was thought to be.
Of course.
And suddenly the papers were full of gay people. The Thatcher government sent around to every household in the country advice on how to have gay sex safely. Safely.
And a radio campaign.
Yeah.
And TV.
The very government that had passed a law saying you couldn't talk about homosexuality to kids at school. Well, you'd think it was the very first thing you should talk about to them. Keep them safe. So AIDS put us on the agenda. And it was, I think without that spur, it would have been more difficult than it was for over what it took about 20 years to get rid of every single anti-gay law in the country and making this country, briefly, the safest place for gay people anywhere in the world to live.
Before we come to an end, I know, listening to your story and the extraordinary connections that you had and the people that you met, there will be trans people listening to this podcast or watching it going, that's all well and good, but what do we do now? And as such a powerful activist, what can you advise to our trans siblings about what they can do who sadly don't have the number of Elton John and don't necessarily have the contacts or are well known? How can they be supported during these impossible times? And looking around the globe, we are seeing gay marriage attempting to be rolled back in America. We are seeing our rights being eroded around Europe and indeed parts of America. What's it like to see things roll back, and what on earth can we do, Ian?
Don't get too downhearted. I mean, look round this room. Nothing wrong with this, is there? And this wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. There wouldn't be a podcast talking about this so openly and with such concern. But I think often the misunderstanding that's abroad with regard to trans people is that, as with gay people 30 years ago, most people believe they've never met anyone who's trans. And the rest think, I'm not absolutely certain that there are any trans people. Or perhaps there are just a few. They used to say that about gay people because they just simply didn't know. So I think the more that the issues are debated, the more that the arguments take place, the discussions, let's say, take place, the more people will be educated into realising that there's nothing to be frightened of. And maybe then that good side of the British character, which is to live and let live. An Englishman's home is his castle. Do what you want when you're on your own, for goodness sake. Being careful about not upsetting other people would just bring a bit of generosity back into the debate. And if you really want, imagine what it's like to know yourself to be trans and to have been through that journey initially on your own, then hopefully with people who can help, and then to be attacked by those who simply don't know your situation. It's appalling, and all one's sympathy and help ought to go towards giving trans people as much help as they need in whatever direction they need it, is my feeling. And I suspect it's most people's feeling, but it gets distorted, and some voices are louder than others. And not being trans myself, I don't speak with any authority. And so I haven't ever tried to enter into the debate because I didn't think I had anything specific to say. And my strength as a gay activist was always that I was speaking on my own behalf and with the authority of that. And I don't have that authority when it comes to trans issues.
Thank you, though, for the endless support that you have done across the LGBTQI plus community, whether that be the theatre companies that I know you've quietly supported, whether that be the artists that you found time for. Thank you for your generosity. I'm afraid that's the end of part one. For our audience here at the Two Brewers, we'll now be taking a 15-minute interval, so please do grab yourself a drink at the bar. And for those tuning in at home, backstage, or from Middle-earth, make sure that you subscribe to the Show People podcast to be notified when part two with Sir Ian McKellen is released. We'd like to extend our gratitude to our wonderful sponsors, Theatre Accounts, the entertainment industry's trusted accountants, looking after thousands of clients across theatre and performance. Connect with them at theatreaccounts.co.uk or at theatreaccounts on social media. Jake Waby Productions, experts in theatre and live performance videography, capturing your stories just the way you want them. From West End shows to global content, their experienced team delivers exceptional cinematic storytelling. And huge thank you to Liam Chaplin, the Two Brewers, and all their gorgeous staff. This podcast is proudly produced by Queer Theatre, committed to telling LGBTQ plus stories and nurturing queer talent. If you've enjoyed this podcast and would like to support our work, please make a donation at queertheatre.co.uk, where you'll also discover details of our weekly acting classes for LGBTQ plus people, the Queer Play Reading Club, showcases, networking events, parties and masterclasses. If you're queer, come and be a part of our community. And if you're not, come and be an ally and support our shows like the Show People Podcast Live. Finally, please put your hands together for our extraordinary guest, Sir Ian McKellen. Until next time, love always.